Hi guys, welcome back to another Creative Tab tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to use the Open Spline tool of the Rotoscoping node, or the Roto node, or the Rotopaint node, okay? It's really handy, and so let's jump on into my first example, okay? So what I've got here is I've got a piece of footage, the links will be available down below. I've got a piece of footage and basically I've changed the trees, as you can see by here. Let's make that a little bit bigger for you. Yeah. The trees I've changed to, I've just graded them green essentially. So the way I've done this is I've simply chucked a grade node on there, played around with some of the colors, and then I've got an alpha coming in via this Roto node. Now if we view my Roto node, you can see that we've got this alpha channel by here, and this has been generated. If we double click this, just make sure that we've got one in our properties bin. You can see we've got tree large and tree small. This has been generated by a series of what we call open splines. So if we look at the tree large, it's just a line, basically a line roto. That's the best way of explaining it. I've just drawn singular lines. So you can see this one by here is just a singular line, dot to dot. Okay. In this example, so if we come back and come out of alpha, in this example, nothing's moving, okay? So I've literally got, apart from the water, but these aren't swaying in a breeze, okay? So I'm going to break down that example first and show you how to draw and edit spline shapes and how to plug it in so it all works. I will be time stamping all of this, by the way, so just look below if you want to get to a certain bit. In the second example, what we've got is, let's get rid of that roto, is we've got this guy or girl, I think it's a man, not really sure. We've got him climbing a wall, and we've got the rope in there as well. So if we just turn this to in, out, I've just done 50 frames. So what I've essentially done is, if I play through here, you can probably tell because the rope is very bright. I've basically animated a roto, an open spline roto, to change the color of the rope. And you don't have to change the color. You can do loads of things. You can remove it if you want to. You can do anything, really. Is I'm just on about generating the alpha. So you can see there, that's what it looks like. But previously it looked like this. So it was an orange rope, and we just changed the color of it by generating an alpha. Now this one was a little bit different than the first one, because the first one we literally set up the shapes and we just drew it, whereas in this one I'm animating them, okay? So you can there see the difference. Right, so let's have a look at my alpha channel. So we can see we've got animated roto by here, but we've actually used some tracking data. So we've stabilized the shot and we've applied this tracking data to our roto, okay? But we've also got another roto coming in where you'll see now as we come back in, my roto, if I just go like that and come out, this blue actually travels, the roto spline travels over the t-shirt. So I've just plugged in this extra alpha with the minus just to block that bit off, as you can see there. So I'm going to jump on in, and we're going to first of all look at how we can create these open splines, okay? So I'm going to get my first piece of footage, come across, and let's start drawing. So if I make a roto node, just by hitting O on the keyboard, okay, drag it in, there's my roto node, cool. Let's have a look at the footage. So what we want to do is we want to separate out this tree. Now if we come into our drop down, we've got something here called open spline, and that's what we're going to be using. So if I come in, and I'm just going to click and drag just to set my handles, my yellow handles going in the direction that we're going to go, so up the tree. You'll notice we've actually got two others as well, but we'll come back to them. What I'm going to do now is click and drag again, and you can see it's almost like a little snake or a little worm. And again, I'm just clicking and dragging my handles just to kind of get the average shape of the tree. Now the thickness, or the width as it's actually named, we can modify this later, okay? And I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you. So first of all, we're just going to draw in our first initial spline, just like so. I'm going to do mine quite quick just because I want to be quick for you guys. Draw it in, draw it in, draw it in. Now, when you first use this, you may have a little bit of trouble, because when you want to click and do something else, so let's say I click over here, it's still drawing. What you want to do is you want to hit escape on your keyboard, okay? And you'll notice some of the icons just went away. So now if I click around here, we're fine. So let's have a look at the alpha channel that we've got. Okay, it's generated an alpha like that, and that's our roto shape. Now these individual pieces, we can actually animate these. You can see I'm on frame 14 at the moment. I've just done 14 frames. Because again, this shot nothing actually moves, so I'm just showing you in here how to draw them, as opposed to do it over a long piece of footage with moving stuff. That'll be the second example. Anyway, what we can do is we can come in, we can move this stuff so we can start actually making this fit now. So what I'm going to do, the green one, if you pull that out, that is modifying the width, okay? So I'm just going to modify the width. The purple one, just in case you wanted to know, that's your feather, okay? So that feathers it in or feathers it out, whatever you want to do. So if we look at the alpha channel, you can see that that's just feathering, like so, okay? I don't want a feather, so I'm just going to undo that. What I want to do is just make sure that the thickness of these matches all the way up, and little knobbly bits like you see by here, you can just add a little small roto shape in there to get them, but the main bulk of it you'll end up getting just like this, okay? I'm going to very quickly skim through mine isn't going to be accurate because I'm doing it as fast as I can, so just like this, and you can modify the path of it as well. So come on in, and yeah, just keep on going up because it gets thinner as we go towards the top as well. Okay, so you can see this is going to be useful for stuff like hair, stuff like wire removal. It becomes very useful for, and yes, it's a really good addition to Nuke. I think it was Nuke 7 or 6, 7 I think they introduced this in. But yeah, so as we get thinner towards the top, just make sure that our roto spline does. And yeah, we're basically there. Okay, so I've got the main bit modified now. So if we look at our alpha channel, it looks a bit more like a tree because it gets thinner as we go to the top. So what you can do is you can just go, right, I'm going to get another one. And I'm going to come here, here, here. And I do a little smaller one by here as well because it gets very wide all of a sudden. So I'll do a secondary one by there. Remember to hit escape. And now I can come back in, select them all. And I'm going to shrink them down so they're all the average size, but this one on the end, I make this a little bit wider. You see it just gets those little edge bits in by there. Okay, so now if we look at our alpha channel, boom, that's what we've got. And you'd essentially carry on going through. I'll do one more, open spline, so click, so I got 2 points close to each other at the beginning, that's what I want. And then just get a nice sort of bit of a curve to that, and come through, same again, and same again. Okay, remember to hit escape. And now with this end one, I'm going to shrink it down. This one, I'm going to shrink it down. We could have done that together, but I know I need to do a lot more lining up on this one. And let's get this one, something like that. And then just modify this path so it curves around more. Cool. And control click to modify that one. Great. And come in here. Oh, a little bit too much. And just shrink this down and put it into place. We can probably shrink that one down a little bit and move it down a touch. Yeah, okay, so again, looking at our alpha channel, this is what we've got. So this is our roto. We've drawn and edited the shape, so I'm just going to show you now. If you put a grade in here, just under your footage, come out of the alpha channel, and let's just chuck a grade where we go into the gain and chuck the greens up, bring the blues down a touch, and bring the reds way down. Okay, all I'm going to do is my mask is going to come into the roto node, and I'm going to disconnect that. So it's now using this alpha channel just to grade that specific area, and you can darken it down as well, and it's probably a little bit too much really, but yeah. So that's basically drawing and editing the roto shapes and how to plug it all in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you this more advanced example where I've used motion tracking to assist my animation. Okay, so example 2, let's come on over. Let's view the piece of footage, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on just the first 50 frames because I think that's what I did over here. Let's just check. Yeah, I did 50 frames. So let's set my out point with O on the keyboard, and let's just view in out. Okay, so here's my 50 frames. Let's have a watch of the piece of footage. Okay, what we want to do is we want to identify how we're going to tackle this, and I've already told you that we're going to be doing some motion tracking, but I'm going to go through why. Okay, so if we wanted to animate the roto splines, we would, because the ropes are moving, but the camera's also moving, so we've got 2 areas of movement in there, and it's just going to be a hell of a lot easier if we first stabilize the shot so the only thing that's moving is the rope, because otherwise when we're keyframing we've got a lot more movement in there, so we're taking out some of the movement, which is the camera move. Okay, so this is very, very simple. What I'm going to do is hit tab and type in tracker, drag my tracker in here, and I'm going to go for 2 track points because I want to track any rotation as well. So again, as I play it through, we're going to look for points which are on there for the whole shot, and I know I'm going to use this point and maybe a point over here. So add track, just like you do normal motion tracking in After Effects or whatever. Just going to motion track this contrasting point by here. Okay, I'm going to track forward, and I'm going to click stop when we get to 50. There you go. And now I'm going to track backwards, all the way back to the beginning, just to make sure we've got all the movement in there. And if I turn my traffic lights on, there is a little bit of red and stuff in there. But to be honest, if I look over here on the left, I'm just going to check. It does actually stick with it for the most part, or as much as we need. There's a little bit of slippage in there, but it's not really going to hinder us that much. So I'm fine with that. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another tracking point, and we're going to bring this one over to here. I think I'm going to track this guy over here, this sort of contrasting point, lock onto that. Yeah, like so, and make that a little bit bigger. Okay, now I'm going to track backwards from frame 31, where I've made my tracking point, and again, that's sticking quite well. Even though it's gone red there, as we scrub through, it's sticking. If you look here, it's sticking really well, so don't know why that's showing so many errors. It's actually quite good. Then I'm going to track forward to frame 50 and stop. Okay, so these are my two tracking points. First thing to do, what we want to do is we want to check our track. So I'm going to come to transform, and I'm going to come to stabilize, and just get rid of this view by hitting Q. And now we're just going to play our footage through, and it's stabilized it around the 2 points which we've motion tracked. So what we've essentially done when this preview's in is we've essentially removed, and there's still a little bit of a wiggle, but in terms of aiding the rotoscoping here, it's not that bad. We've removed the camera movement, okay? So that's working quite well for us. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off none, okay? And I want to start rotoscoping, but as we play through, notice because the camera's moving, we lose some of the rope, okay? So more of the rope's revealed here, and then again the camera goes up, so we lose some of it. What I want to do is get to a frame where most of the rope is exposed or on film, okay? So at frame 32, that's where we've got most of the rope in view, as opposed to frame 10 where there's, obviously some of it missing down here. So I'm going to come to frame 32, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to my reference frame. And my reference frame is currently frame 1, so if we view through the stabilize, it's centered at frame 1, okay? But you'll notice as we come through, it actually pulls the edges of the footage, and that's how it does the stabilization. So what we want that to happen on frame 32. Because we've got that little bit cut off, we want to set our reference frame to frame 32, where we've got the most rope on show, and it'll just center it and around that now. Okay, so that's all you need to do, frame 32 for that, or where the most of it is in show. And next of all, okay, so we'll turn this back off. What we're going to do in our tracker node, come back to the initial tracker panel, we can actually, instead of viewing it, stabilized through here, we can actually export a transform stabilized node, okay? So I'm going to click back in tracker, transform, stabilize, baked. Baked means that it's not going to be linked, so don't really worry. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to turn on translation, rotate, and scale. That's important. Make sure they're all turned on. And yeah, transform, stabilize, baked, create, and that's created a node for us. If we'd done transform, stabilize, and click create, you'll notice we've got a second one, and that's linked with an expression. So if anything changes, if we retrack, this node will update, but this one won't because it's baked in there. It's in there for good, okay? And because I know the track works, I'm just going with baked. Cool, so I've got my stabilize, okay? So now if we just view the footage as normal, there's camera movement in there, but if we view it through our stabilize node, which we generated from the tracker, that's what we've got. And this is going to be a lot easier for the Roto, okay? So what I'm going to do is, under this, I'm going to get O for Roto node, and let's come to, well, I'm on frame 32 because it's my reference frame, so I'll just stick with that, because that's where we got the most of the rope in show. If we drew our rotor shape down here, we wouldn't know where to kind of draw it. So start on your reference frame, I'm going to come in with my open spline, click by here, and I am actually going to do, argument would say just do one at the top, one at the bottom to save points, but I am actually going to do 2 in the middle because there is some slight bends in it. And when I was doing the practice version earlier, working through the footage to see if it was good enough for the tutorial, I actually did notice that I needed to add points in when I did the first top bottom. Okay, so remember, I've drawn the points, you press escape, and now we can come back in and we can start modifying. So let's come up to here and let's bring that in like so. Let's come down to our second point. It is actually hard to see because the yellow dot by there is actually on top of, if I move it to the side, you can now see the yellow dot, but because it's on top of orange, it is quite difficult to see. But yeah, so let's come in like that. And it needs to be a little bit of a curve in here actually. So let's come to this one. And let's go and cusp points. And this will just let us, if we click on it, no, not cusp points, sorry, smooth points. We just click on this, it'll now give us, moving back in, it'll now give us these handles, because when I initially drew it, I didn't click and drag, okay? It'll now give us these handles, and we can pull these handles out, and just give it a nice little curve. And I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm going to smooth this point, so it'll now give us a little handle, and again, it's hard to see, but it is there. Okay, so you can cater this now, just to make sure it fits tightly around there. Come down with my second point. There it is. So I'm going to bring this in, the width like that. Also, I'm going to give this, smooth the point. Again, click and drag when you're drawing. I made the mistake of not doing that. Okay. And now what we can do is, yeah, we can just cater this, give it a little kink. See, it does actually move a little bit. It has got a little kink in it, and you can basically carry on wrapping round. So what we will have now is, again, mine's quite rough. If we view our alpha, it's because we've got an alpha channel generated here by the transform node. But if we just take that off, we can see, yeah, we've got that. So what you want to do is you'll want to work through. We've got our initial keyframe there. Let's go backwards in the frames. So we've got our spline here. Double click so we can see it and turn overlay on. Okay, let's work backwards. And you can see there's been a little bit of a move now with the rope. So I'm going to come to the frame where it's moved the furthest away and stopped. Yeah, it sort of moves away and then kind of stops by about here. So what I'm going to do at frame 21, just going to reline this up and come across, reline this up. And then reline this up. Okay, so let's just quickly go in, modify these paths. Shouldn't take too long. And modify these paths. Okay, like so. Okay, so let's now check between frame 32 and 21. Let's check the animation. It moves away a little bit early, so I'm just going to move that back in because it starts moving slowly, really. So all you need to do is go through and match these up, and they shouldn't be too difficult. Cool. So let's carry on going, zoom out, and yeah, so that's working there. And it could do with catching up a little bit by here. So I'll come to frame 25, and it's basically you just want to work your way through. Not all points are going to drift. Some of them are, some of them will stay. Yeah, because there's sometimes a lot more movement at the top of the rope than at the bottom. So you'll learn as you go through. Okay, now if we carry on, go in between. Yeah, that's moving with it now. And then at the end, it'll probably, even though I've come back 2 frames, it's still more or less on. I'm just going to move that over a touch. And it doesn't really start moving back until frame 18. So I'm just going to set a keyber there. And then, let's have a look, move back. And yeah, still moving away. So I'll wait until about frame 3, I think, and then set a new keyframe here. And just move this across so it gets the bottom bit. There we go, like so. And move this one a little bit to the right. And where's my other point? It's here. And that's a little bit misaligned by there, so I'm just going to move that in. Great. Okay. And move that to the side as well. Cool. And go back to frame 1. It moves a little bit more to the right. So I'm just going to move that like so. Cool. And you're going to want to work through until it's done. Okay, so yeah, just check in between then. In between here, mine's more or less there. I'm just going to move that a little bit. Yeah, it's matching up. And then very quickly, just work our way through to the end. And I'll do mine as quick as we can now so that we can get onto the final bit where I show you how to relink this up with the match move. So just drag it across. Drag this one across. And yeah, we're looking like we are nearly there. Come back. Can drag these across a little bit. Okay, drag them across. Great. Let's check up here as well because I didn't really check these. Pull that one in. Pull this one in. And yeah, great. Now to frame 50. Final touches. Bring that across. And great. Right, okay. So that took a little bit longer than I wanted, but we're back. What we've got now is, if we disconnect this, we've got an alpha channel, which is animated, okay? We've got a little bit of animation there, a little bit of a wavy rope, right? Now remember, this is linked to the stabilise, node. So if I were to chuck a grade onto my footage and view that and say, right, I'm going to grade to change the color of the rope like I did with the example. And we're going to turn it blue. So we're going to decrease the red, increase the blue, and do whatever we want with the green. There we go, decrease it a little bit. If we now plug this into the Roto node, let's have a look and see what happens. So we plug this into the Roto node, but it's blue everywhere, and that's because the transform is giving us an alpha. So if we view the alpha by here, alpha is like everywhere. So okay, disconnect that then. What happens? Well, if we have a look, this blue line isn't matching up, and the reason being is because we need to add in our match move data in a different way. Okay, so we've used the stabilize to stabilize the footage and roto across it. What we need to do, we need to put that to the side, pull our roto up here, go back to the tracker. Remember earlier we exported a transform node? Well, we need that data but in reverse, so we want a match move node. So just coming down here, go to transform, match move, click create, and actually I'll delete that one because I want to have match move baked so it's not linked. Doesn't really matter. But now if I put this here, you'll notice that if I now play through that, let's come out wide, when I play through now, we've got the camera move back in there because all we're viewing is the footage and the grade. Okay, so the camera move is there, we haven't removed it. What we've done is we've used this tracking data, we've tracked the motion, we initially stabilized it so we could do our roto on a stable plate, but then when we took the stabilize out, we have to, instead of stabilizing it, we have to add the motion to the roto spline, and that's what that's doing. So if I turn this transform match move off, you can see it animates like from left to right as the rope swings, but we need this transform match move in there, okay? And then it'll do it. So I'm not going to do this one by here because, again, I've gone through what you need to do. All you would do, if you wanted to do that, is you would get your stabilize back, come into here, and you would literally, this view, you would literally just draw another spline along here, and you'd carry on animating it until it's all done. Disconnect from the stabilize, attach it to the match move, and there you go. Now in my example, that's exactly what I've got going on, apart from I've got an additional roto in mind, so let's connect that there. I've got an additional roto in mind because I just want to mask off this little bit. So the alpha channel, without it, the roto spline goes over and colours the, remember if I show you by here, and colours in the guy's t-shirt. All I've done is by adding another roto with a channel merge and using the minus, it's basically subtracting that little bit, okay? Again, if you want to look at combining maths, check out some previous lessons on rotoscoping. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you all found that informative. I hope it helped you. Let me know what you want to see in future tutorials, and cheers for tuning in.